page or something. I don't know. All right, so let's turn this music down and let's get started. Why should we study the Hermetic Principles? Because the Hermetic Principles help us with mental transmutation, mental alchemy. We begin to to be the creators that we really want to be. Hold on one second. I wanted to release this person because I don't feel like talking like that. Hey, Jordan, thank you. Okay. Every thought, you ready? This is still under the principle of vibration. Every thought, emotion, or mental state has its corresponding rate and mode of vibration. Now, the last time I was here, when we spoke about the principle of correspondence, we said that there's some link. There's a relationship. That's what correspondence means. Or a similar energy, a matching bond, right? So it's saying here that every thought, every emotion, every mental state has a corresponding rate or frequency and a mode of vibration. Every thought is a vibration. Every emotion is a vibration. Every mental state of being is a vibration. Okay. And by effort of the will of the person or other persons, these mental states may be reproduced just as a musical tone may be reproduced by causing an instrument to vibrate at a certain rate, just as a color may be reproduced in the same way. Every thought, every emotion, every mental state has a vibrational rate or frequency, and it has a vibration. And at the will of the person, it says, or others, that rate and vibration can be reproduced. In other words, it can be shifted by the will of the person or others. Did you hear that? So why else is it important that we understand these principles and laws so that we can retain our own autonomy, so that when we act consciously and we're not acted upon? You heard that, right? Hey, Just Rain. How you doing, Justice Rain? So let's continue. By a knowledge of the principle of vibration as applied to the mental phenomena, one may polarize his mind at any degree he wishes, thus gaining a perfect control over his mental states. I'm gonna stop right there. How you doing, Jess? It says by knowledge of the principles. By knowledge of the principle of vibration applied to the mental state, the thought, or the emotion, you can polarize your mind at any degree. In other words, you get to choose. You get to choose. Hey, time traveler, when you understand that every thought, every emotion, every mental state has a rate of vibration and also a vibration, then by applying the principle of vibration, you can shift that. That means you're not a victim of circumstance ever. It may take some work, yes, but you're never a victim of circumstance. In fact, if you begin to apply this principle in small ways, then those small ways will build your confidence and your muscle when it comes to something that is really profound. Okay, so it's saying that some comments in this live are being filtered. I don't know what y'all saying, but it's filtering. Okay. In the same way, he may affect the minds of others. Ooh. In the same way you can polarize yourself, you can polarize others. In other words, you can shift the emotions, the mental states, and the thoughts of others. Now, you might think this is some woo-woo stuff. It is, okay? And you could take it or leave it. But one thing I know for sure, you can't unsee it. So you can walk around and say, nobody can control me, but you don't know the principles. You don't have command over your being. You don't apply the principles. Yes, they can. And guess who does? And guess who does every single day? The media. They direct your mental states. The people around you, you don't know how to practice emotional and energetic hygiene. So you're absorbing stuff from other people. And sometimes it's on purpose. Sometimes the people around you are dumping on purpose. Listen, I'm just trying to inform you that you need to become more intentional about your state of being and your energy. Okay, so let's continue. See, sometimes some people get mad at me because I'm saying something that they don't like, but I'm reading from the Kyballion, the Hermetic Principles, the Hermetists. They said this, and I agree. Okay, so let's continue. I'm a name drop. The Hermetic Masters said this because we're talking about mental mastery. Now, if you don't want mental mastery and you want to be in denial, then that's fine. I'm talking to some people who want to operate in mental transmutation. If you want to see the earlier teachings I've done this week on these topics, the principle of mentalism, the principle of correspondence, then go to my YouTube. You can get it there. All right, let's continue. In the same way, he may affect the minds of others, producing the desired mental states in them. Producing the desired mental states in them. Have you ever read The Art of Seduction? You need to. That's probably going to be our next book. I may do that in my private community, though. You read it? Good. I have a private community where we have conversations like this all week long. We jump on a call, it's in an app, and we just go in. I have courses there, both free and also courses for behind a paywall. So if you want something more interactive than a live, then you can join that community. Let me know and I'll send you the link. It's for only people who want to participate, though. If you don't want to participate and you just want to sit there and take up space, I'm going to release you from it. Okay? In short, he may be able to produce on the mental plane that which science produces on the physical plane, namely vibrations at will. This power, of course, may be acquired only by the proper instruction, exercises, practice, etc. The science being that of mental transmutation, one of the branches of Hermetic art. I love Hermeticism. I very much am into it every single day, and that's why I bring it to you. I hardly ever bring something to you that I don't practice myself because I don't like talking about what I don't know. I'm not going to teach something I don't know. I teach what I practice. Okay. So listen, a little reflection on what we have said will show the student that the principle of vibration underlies the wonderful phenomena of the power manifested by the masters and adepts, who are able to apparently set aside the laws of nature, but who in reality are simply using one law against another. Hermeticism. So it says here that there are some people who can direct the laws of nature, or rather, because they're not changing the laws of nature. These are universal laws. But what they're doing is they are purposeful and knowledgeable and have been practicing the different laws that support the principles. And so they use a higher law to shift the lower law. That's what they're doing. So, for example, we could sit here and try to attract all we want, but the principle of vibration might be hindering your attraction, right? Even though you want it a lot, and even though the law of attraction is real, you may not be attracting what you want, and you may be wondering why. So then you would need to go to a higher law to govern the lower law. Okay, so for example, the principle of polarity, it's not a law, it's a principle, and it says you got to learn how to polarize yourself. And if you don't know how to polarize yourself, you could sit there all day long trying to attract something, but if you don't have the polarity of it that complements it, then that's what you're going to do, is just sit there and keep wanting it. And you might wonder, why does the law of attraction not work for me? Because you need other laws to work in sync, but you don't know the laws because the collective only tells you law of attraction. I'm trying to give you some more insight so you can become more masterful. Let me know if that makes sense. Hey, Kim. Okay. I'm going to read that part again. It says, a little reflection on what we have said. What we just said is everything has a vibration. Every thought, every emotion, every mental state, there's a frequency and a vibration to go along with each one of those. And at your will, when you practice and become masterful, you can polarize yourself and the states of other people. A little reflection on this will show the student that the principle of vibration underlies the wonderful phenomena of the power manifested by the masters and adepts who are able to apparently set aside the laws of nature, but who in reality are simply using one law against another, one principle against another, and who accomplish their results by changing the vibration of material objects or forms of energy, and thus perform what are commonly called miracles. A miracle, right? It's a shifting in vibration. So what if you knew more than hope? What if you knew more than belief? What if you had some principles and laws to help you shift energy? Wouldn't you want to know them? Or would you want to just keep saying, I hope that happens, I hope that happens, right? And wouldn't you want to practice? The power is of mastery. It's not of knowledge, right? So you can walk away and tell someone what I just said. There won't be necessarily any power in that. The power comes in when you absorb this and you live it out. So we're not just talking about the law of attraction. We're not just talking about manifestation. We're talking about higher and lower laws, everything on the continuum. We're talking about spirituality here, and we're talking about mastery within spirituality. And if you don't want to be controlled, then you need to learn the law so you can see when you're being controlled versus think you're being controlled, feel you're being controlled. You know how many people are walking around here thinking that someone is doing work on them? That's a miserable state of being because they are powerless to shift it. So they think they need to go to someone else to do it. And sometimes they do. Some people are just existing with that thought, keeping themselves stuck. But the Hermetic Principles tell us that we can polarize ourselves and also the energies of others. So I think it's time to come into more practice, don't you think? Hey, Penny, how you doing? As one of the old Hermetic writers have truly said, he who understands the principle of vibration has grasped the scepter of power. It didn't say he who understands the law of attraction. It says he who understands the principle of vibration. The principle is, I should say the law is subordinate to the principle. Okay, so you can know all about the law, but if you don't know the principle that governs it and the truth that that principle embodies, then you can't embody it, right? So again, it says, he who understands the principle of vibration has grasped the scepter of power. You are empowered now. And the principle of vibration is not just everything vibrates. It's an embodiment of the truth. It's a command and a practice of the truth. Yes or no? Are y'all getting it? So now let's move on to the principle of polarity. Okay, the principle of polarity. If it makes sense, type yes. And if you think this teaching is solid and is something you want to share with your friends, go ahead and share it. Okay. We're moving on to the principle of polarity. So here's a quiz. What is the axiom of the principle of mentalism? What is the axiom? And if you don't know, you got to go to my YouTube channel and look up that teaching and listen to it because you need it. The principle of mentalism. See, we got to become masterful, y'all. You got to become masterful. This is a practice. This is not something to just know and then forget about. This is something to embody. When you look at all of the powerful people that you think are powerful, they are embodying these principles. That's where your power self exists. Your power self is part of universal truth and in harmony with it. Okay, so the axiom for the principle of mentalism is the all is mind and the universe is mental. The all is mind. And when we say mind, we mean consciousness. When we say the all, we went through that whole lesson about what we're talking about in terms of the all. The consciousness that pervades and runs through and underlies all substantial realities. The capital THEALL. The all is mind. It's a consciousness. And the universe is mental. The universe is not matter. The universe is mental, existing in the consciousness of the all. We got to understand that. And then we move to the principle of correspondence. What is the axiom for the principle of correspondence? See, the reason I teach this is so that you can start embodying, right? That's why I break it down. That's why I make it practical, so we can practice and with discipline and intention and virtue, embody the truths, the principles. Because once you embody the principles, they're already running in and through you. Then you begin to direct courses of actions, right? Fit brown woman, as above, so below, as below, so above. That's the axiom. Yes. Okay. And then we went over the 3 great planes of existence. And then we went over the subplanes of existence. So if you understand that this universe is mental, existing in the consciousness of the all, then you understand that on these planes, there are differences in frequencies and vibrations. And you must know that everything is a frequency and vibration. It says rate of vibration. That's the frequency. You're a frequency. I'm a frequency. And there are some frequencies and vibrations that are not available to the senses. So we got to hone some other part of our being to even apprehend that. And then there's some frequencies and vibrations that are not available to the average person because they have not taken time to hone in certain parts of themselves. That's why I'm trying to give you an opportunity to see beyond this, what we think is solid and matter, and get into something that is more substantial. And then we moved on to the principle of vibration. And the principle of vibration says everything vibrates, nothing is at rest. This is not a physical plane, but the great paradox. Do you remember the great paradox that we went over last night? What is the great paradox that we must all understand and receive? I actually gave 2 of them. So if you give me one of the 2, great. And y'all be tapping the screen. Thank y'all so much. What is the great paradox? Or one of them? Penny, you got exclamation marks. You feeling that? The great paradox. So I'm going to go ahead and answer it. A paradox is something that seems like it doesn't make sense until you reflect upon it, and then you realize it does make sense. A great paradox may sound like gibberish, but a mind that can reflect upon it will see that it actually embodies truth. The universe is, and the universe is not. It's both. So we have to learn how to live on the more subtle planes, as well as this physical plane that we call matter. We got to live on both. You can't just decide, I'm living on the great planes of energy and the ethers, and I'm just going to live there. You can't. Because you also exist here. And then we went over another great paradox. You struggle with the physical existence. Yeah, and it becomes a practice that we become masterful on the continuum and harmonize. I think that's the work for us, especially those of us who dwell with spirit heavily. You can get lost in spirit and forget that the universe is because you remember that it is not too. You must also remember that it is. But it is said that when we become masterful at these laws and these principles, then life begins to flow versus feel like it feels, right? Which is feeling stuck. Some people feel stuck on the lower plane of matter. They feel disconnected from the subtler planes. We need both. The great paradox, it said even last night, the wise man learns how to do both, right? And how we do both means we become more well-versed on every plane that is available to us. Now, some planes are not available until we vibrate at a certain frequency, but the ones that are available, we can master them, we can transcend them. Yes or no? This is a lifestyle. It's not really where we pop on and we repeat something. And I think we all here know that. It's something we have to like digest over and over and over again and actually act it out, live it out, become it, see from it, craft our thoughts from it, speak from it, right? So let's continue then. I get so excited to become. Yeah. So it's no longer outside of you acting. You're not waiting for the law of attraction to bring something to you. You actually are already it. Okay. Let's continue. The principle of polarity. Everything is dual. Everything has poles. Everything has its pair of opposites. Like and unlike are the same. Opposites are identical in nature, but different in degree. So you know that person that's in front of you getting on your nerves? You know that person? You two sides of the same coin. Like and unlike are the same, but differ in degree. Okay? Yeah, Key, come on, do it. Extremes meet. All truths are but half-truths. All paradoxes may be reconciled. The Kyballion. The great fourth Hermetic principle, the principle of polarity, embodies the truth that all manifested things have two sides. All manifested things have two sides. You're a manifested thing and you have two sides. You're not all love and light and you're not all dark and nobody is. Let me see. I missed what y'all was saying. Hold on. I must have missed something. Okay, I'm going to keep going. Everything has two sides, two aspects, two poles, a pair of opposites, with manifold degrees between the two extremes. Okay? If you understand one quality of energy, then you also can understand the opposing quality. And if you understand the principles and laws that govern that, then you can polarize it yourself in your own life rather than just be at the whim of whatever is going on, like the Mercury retrograde. I don't know why Mercury retrograde is so important to the collective, as if there's nothing else going on in the sky. But it seems like Mercury retrograde and Venus retrograde, even though there's all kind of stuff going on, people begin to, ooh, you know, Mercury retrograde. Ooh, you know, Venus retrograde. Guess what? When you become masterful in the principles and laws, then you can work with those retrogrades rather than feeling like, oh my God, I need to worry about this or that. Okay. Now I'm here learning what took place. Let's see. Hold on. Right now, did you know there's like a Leo stellium in the sky? That's significant. But I don't know very many people who are talking about it. But We will talk about certain aspects. And those of us who are here, who identify as sapios or lovers of knowledge, healers, practitioners, mystics, spiritualists, all of the above, teachers, guides, we must take the time to go to our own depths so we can assist the people who we are here to serve. And if we stay on the surface, then they stay on the surface too. So we go deeper for ourselves first, because evolution is important. And then we offer the nuggets to inspire enlightenment, right? Which is why you're in a pause. And guess what, Penny? No matter where you are, there is someone on a lower plane or lower frequency that needs to hear what you have to say, no matter where you are. So maybe you don't worry about the people who are up here, but you remember that there are people down here. Now, there are times to come away. There are times to heal. There are times to reflect. There are times when the divine is creating a transition within us. Absolutely. Absolutely. So I'm not saying don't do your rest or nothing like that. I just went on a tangent because I'll be doing that. The time traveler, you said, yes, absolutely. Key, you're on a lower frequency. We're gonna talk about that. Listen. The old paradoxes which have ever perplexed the minds of men are explained by understanding of this principle. Man has always recognized something akin to this principle and has endeavored to express it by such sayings, maxims, and aphorisms as the following. So man has been talking about the principle of polarity without calling it that through these next phrases, okay? So tell me if you've heard of these before, okay? Everything is and isn't at the same time. Have you heard that before? Everything is or isn't at the same time. That's a way of talking about the principle of polarity. All truths are but half-truths, the principle of polarity. Every truth is half false, principle of polarity. There are two sides to everything, principle of polarity. There is a reverse side to every shield, the principle of polarity. So we talk about the principle in our everyday life. It's ingrained in our literature and in our teachings, yes? Even everyday life. The Hermetic teachings are to the effect that the difference between things seemingly diametrically opposed to each other is merely a matter of degree. For example, you have heat and you have cold. Both are temperature. So they're the same in kind, but they differ in degree. But let me ask you this. Who's to say where heat ends and cold begins? That's subjective. There's a such thing, we talked about this last night. There's a such thing as subjective truth and universal truth. Universal truth is true on every plane, every dimension, every subplane, every continent, every culture, every object that exists. Universal truth is true always and infinite. Hey, Moon. But relative truth depends on your perspective, depends on your vibration, depends on your capacity, depends on your conditioning and your ability. Okay, so when we talk about truth that we need to evolve, we're talking about universal truth, because remember, every thought, every emotion, every mental state has a corresponding vibration, and everything has two poles. See, we're putting this life together. So you can decide that a universal truth is not true for you. It's still acting, but that unconsciousness is going to stop you on another plane of manifestation. You can decide, I don't want to live by that universal truth because I don't like it. It's inconvenient. I want to do something else. You have the will to direct your energy. However, We must embody the truth that you're going to be stuck on one of the lower planes, looping until you increase your vibration. It's not a test. It's not a punishment. It's the law of cause and effect. When you decide you don't want to vibrate on the level of a universal truth, you can choose that. You just stay on the level of that vibration and frequency. That's it. Right? And there's no shame in it. Because some kind of way in the healing community, we have become so ashamed of having a low vibration. But if you don't know that your vibration is on a lower plane, then you can't ascend. You can't do anything. You're stuck. You think what's real is only what's down there. Yeah, looping is done. It's over for us, right? Is looping over for you? Do you want to keep... It's not a punishment. Nobody is testing you to see, okay? It's an opportunity for you to know what your true frequency is, rate of vibration and vibration, so you can come up on the planes. We talked about there being 3 great planes, and each plane being divided into 7 planes, and each of those being divided into 7 planes, okay? So there's a lot of shifting that we can do. It can be dizzying. No more loops. Okay? So that's why we're here learning these universal truths so we can practice and embody them. Yes. You know what? You're coming up just by sitting and listening and deciding that you want your vibration to be different. Okay? So it teaches that the pairs of opposites may be reconciled, and that the thesis and antithesis are identical in nature but different in degree, and that the universe reconciliation of opposites is affected by a recognition of the principle of polarity. The teachers claim that illustrations of this principle may be had on every hand, from every examination into the real nature of anything. You see that universal truth? You see this on every hand in everything that exists. This is the level of truth we want to be on. I don't want to be on your personal truth and my truth. My truth is, that's fine. No problem. That's relative. But when we're talking about evolution, you got to admit that your truth sometimes is not in harmony with universal truth. And you don't act like you know it sometimes. Sometimes it floats out of your consciousness. And a teaching like this has to bring it back, okay? They begin by showing that the spirit and matter but are 2 planes of the same thing. The intermediate planes being merely degrees of vibration. They show that the all and the many are the same, the differences being merely a matter of degree of mental manifestation. So listen, if you knew that your emotion was a vibration, just a vibration, right? If you knew that, and you were experiencing a vibration that you didn't like, if you were applying masterfully the principle of vibration and polarity, you would decide to polarize yourself according to truth rather than think, oh, this thing is happening. I have a right to feel like this. And you do. And you do. And it's valid. It's just that at some point, once you understand what's going on and you feel the things that are moving through your system, you say, this is a vibration and it's not the end of the world. This is a frequency and I could shift it if I want to. I am not in any kind of way under the authority of the vibration. I am the authority over the vibration. And we just read here 2 days ago that power, energy, and mind are subordinate under the authority of mental mastery. So do you want to keep looping or you want mental mastery? Because that's when you really begin to flourish, even though things are wild around you, even though people are saying and doing and being, even though the world is XYZ, you understand what your true authority is. And many people don't know. So they fall by the wayside of, oh, this is happening to me. We're talking about mental mastery, mental transmutation, real alchemy, not affirmations. I love affirmations, but affirmations don't have a frequency to challenge a law. Affirmations don't have a vibration to exist on the higher planes. Affirmation exists where they exist and they're good for what they are good for. But after a while, you start needing something more than that. You can write an affirmation 300 times. You can write it 3,000 times. But if your vibration is on a lower plane, then all you're doing is practicing the words of it. And that's good because you need that too to program your brain. But at some point, you got to put in some real application. It's good stuff. Right? But that's because we're stuck on the plane of law of attraction. I'm attracting, I'm manifesting, I'm shifting this and that, right? But your moods remain out of your creative ability. But your emotions remain out of your creative ability. But your reactions remain outside of your creative ability. So we got to practice this. It's not just about bringing forth the money. It's not just about bringing forth the relationship. It's not just about that, because guess what? If you have not practiced the vibration such that it's natural, you're not going to stay on that plane. It's going to be transient to you. It's going to come and it's going to be like grasping water. It's going all through your fingers, the tighter you grasp. So should we want things? Yes. Desire them. But at the same time, understand that these laws and these principles help us to ground a reality and create a reality, not just get tossed to and fro on everything that happens. Okay, let's continue. They begin by showing that spirit and matter are but two poles of the same thing. If you knew that spirit and matter were two poles of the same thing, just differing in degree, would you be living just like a meat suit? You call it a meat suit. It's not. It's not even solid. But if you knew that there's no difference between you and spirit, would you be sitting there feeling disconnected? If you understood that we're on various planes that are interwoven and interconnected, would you be sitting there in powerlessness, or would you be trying to activate your synapses to the rest of your whole big, all is mind body, universe is mental? Thank you. I'm asking a question. They begin by showing that spirit and matter are but two poles of the same thing, the intermediate planes being merely degrees of vibration. They show that the all and the many are the same, the differences being merely a matter of degree of mental manifestation. Thus, the law and laws are two opposite poles of one thing. Likewise, principle, capital letters, and principle, lowercase letters, infinite mind and finite mind. Then passing on to the physical plane, they illustrate the principle by showing that heat and cold are identical in nature. See, when I start having conversations with people, I'm starting my conversations with the basis of certain philosophies that I teach from. It could be Hermetic spirituality. It could be Hermetic principles. It could be yogic philosophy, right? It could be Gnostic philosophy. I'm coming to you with a foundation on a certain frequency. And so if this information is on a frequency that you never heard before, or that you fear, or you have some natural resistance to, you will push it away and say, that's not real. But if you were to bypass your ego for a second, because that's where fear and concern and worry and resistance exist. If you were to bypass the ego and sit for a moment and go, let me feel into the truth of this, then you would find that your cells respond to truth. You would find that your mental starts reorganizing itself when it starts hearing truth, even if you don't know how to explain it. You may be thinking something is happening inside of me and I don't know what it is. That's because truth is universal on every plane. Your atoms understand it. The molecules understand it. Your organs understand it. Your systems understand it. Every cell has a consciousness that is interwoven with the all. This all is mental. And so you may not know how to speak about it. So your ego will come in and go, that's not what we know. That's not what we've been told. I've never heard that before. That's not true. This is not true. She's this, she's that. And then you click off the live and then you block or you do whatever you do. This has been happening for years because I understand the ego does not want change. It's a static reality. It's a lower vibration than spirit. So when something like spirit touches it, it winces. But you are not your ego. But you are not your ego. You are consciousness. You are divine mind. And so you must become masterful at telling the ego, I need you on certain levels and planes, right? But I'm transcending this. So while you are important, I need you to get in place so that my higher self can activate. So I can actually be on the timeline that I'm looking at versus trying to get there and struggling with the lower one, right? There is a physical comfort in the ego, and that's the distraction. It wants you to stay where you are, right? Not because the ego has a will or anything, but by design. By design, it's a structure to keep us grounded in this reality so we don't float off into the ethers while still in our bodies. So we can remember to eat and remember to drink and remember to nurture our relationships and remember to wash dishes and take a bath and all of this stuff. It's there to help you, but it's not supposed to be leading you. See, that's where fear comes in because the ego says, wait a minute, I don't have something for this program. I don't know where to log this. There's no category. I never heard this before. Danger, danger, danger. Resist it. That's what the ego is there for. And that has kept you alive for a long time. Because let's say when you were 3 and you went and you were reaching for something because you thought it was a jump rope, but it turns out it was a snake. And your mother jumped and pulled you back from danger. Then your ego goes, note taken. Next time I see a thing that looks like that, don't grab it. Danger. So now you could be down the street and you see something coiled up and your ego is going to say danger. That's a snake. It might not even be a snake. It might be something else. But your ego, it works on pattern recognition. But some patterns need to be transcended. At some point, you need to grow to understand that everything that looks coiled up is not a snake, even though at 3 it was. And what I'm saying, am I making sense? You need your ego, but it's not the leader of you. Your higher self is the leader of you. Your body is the leader of you. Your wisdom and bliss body, that's the leader of you. Your consciousness, okay? Give me a second. I don't want that air to turn on. Do you feel more activated? I hope so. We're not trying to unalive an ego. What are you doing? That's part of your manamaya. You need it. You're activated. We're not doing away with the ego. We're coming into alignment. Okay? The ego is not here. It needs to be here. Okay, let's continue. The thermometer shows many degrees of a temperature, the lowest pole being called cold, the highest heat. Between the 2 poles are many degrees of heat or cold. Call them either, and you're equally correct. You're welcome. Yes, time. The higher of the 2 degrees is always the warmer, while the lower is always the colder. There's no absolute standard of hot or cold. All is a matter of degree. There is no place on the thermostat, or thermometer rather, where heat ceases and cold begins. It's all a matter of higher or lower vibration. The very terms of high and low, which we are compelled to use, are but poles of the same thing. The terms are relative. They're not absolute. There's no absolute cold and absolute hot and absolute space where one ends and the other begins, because what's cold to you is not cold to me, and vice versa. So, with east and west, travel around the world in an eastern direction, and you will reach a point which is called west at your starting point. And you return from that westward point. Travel far enough north, and you will find yourself traveling south, or vice versa. If you keep going north, eventually you're going to realize that you're actually south. And if you go east, if you keep traveling east, you're going to realize that you're actually west. Is that making sense? Light and darkness are poles of the same thing, with many degrees between them. The musical note is the same, starting with C. You move upward until you reach another C, and so on. The difference between the two ends of the board being the same, with many degrees between the two extremes. The scale of color is the same, higher and lower vibrations being the only difference between high violet and low red. Large and small are relative. So are noise and quiet. Hard and soft follow this rule. Likewise, sharp and dull, positive and negative are two poles of the same thing with countless degrees between them. Good and bad are not absolute. I'm going to say it again. Good and bad are not absolute. They're relative. It depends on you and your point of view and your conditioning and your experience. Something might be bad to you and it's good to me, or it's not that bad. Have you ever said, I'm hurting, and someone says, is it that bad? Yeah, it's that bad to me. You might have said, I spent a lot of money. Maybe $500 is a lot of money for you, but for someone who has a lot more money, that's a little bit of money. So if you know this, how can we apply this? If you know this, you can stop tussling with people over relative ideas. That's not cold. Yes, it is. That is cold. Shoot. No, it's not. You're right. It's not cold to you. And it is cold at the same time. We get this. You get in a tizzy over stuff like this. That movie is good. No, it's not. Yes, it is. No, it's not. What are you doing? You're a good person. No, you're not. No, I'm not. They're not good. Yes, they are. It's relative. Something might be a little nasty to me and a lot nasty to you and good to somebody else. You argue over relative things. It just don't make sense. But it's in the realm of the Manomaya. It's on one of the lower mental planes where people go back and forth like that, and they feel like it's fun and it's okay for them because that's where they want to be. But I'm just saying, here is pointless. Where are you moving to with that? This is why I refuse to tussle with people. Not anymore. I used to. When I was on a different kind of vibration, I used to go back and forth. Now I just like information. Tell me how you see the world. Tell me how you see this. Let's see if it's in alignment with what we can create. And if not, then that is okay too. There's nothing wrong. There's no such thing as you're not enough and I'm not enough and you're too sensitive. All of that is relative. So if you tell me, let's say, because I have a very strong personality, somebody might say, you're too harsh. I get it. Now, let me ask myself, am I getting the results I want in my life with my personality? If I am, then ashe. If I'm not, let's change it. But there's no need for offense there. And I know because I used to do this. If somebody says, you too sensitive, oh my God, how could you say that? You don't really love me, you don't like me. No, it's relative, okay? I know you think that's too sensitive, that's a bit much for you. For me, it is this way in my world, so let me go and take care of this, and I know this isn't a place where I can process it. It's cool. Why you gotta get upset? You don't. But you have to practice, okay? All of us have to practice. Say all, type in all, the lowercase A-L-L. All of us have to practice. This is mental mastery. Remember, it said that if you understand these principles, you can polarize yourself and shift your moods, emotions, mental states, and that of others. Now, that could be a positive thing because motivational speakers, they know how to shift people. It's not indefinite because the person eventually will come back to their own reality. But at least they have the opportunity. When you offer enlightenment to people, it's like you open the door for them to peek through. And then they get to decide whether they're going to walk all the way through or sit back in the space that they came in. It's totally up to them. Hey, shapeshifter. And there's nothing wrong with that. So stop judging people. Oh, they on a low vibration. You're on a low vibration feeling that. You differing only in a few degrees. It's still contraction. We're talking about mental mastery, and we got to call this what it is. Because if we keep making excuses for a lower vibration, yet saying that we're awakened, then we're fooling ourselves. The awakening is in the practice. So you get the light bulb moment. Whoa, something. You see something. Now you apply something. Then you become the something. Now you create it. Shapeshifter, what's up? Now look at this one. This one's good. This one's good. Beginning at any point of the scale, we find more love and less hate. Okay? Beginning at any point of the scale, we find more love and less hate. As we ascend the scale, we may find more hate or less love. As we descend, this being true, no matter from what point, high or low, we may start. There are degrees of love and hate, and there is a middle point of like and dislike that becomes so faint on that continuum where it's difficult to distinguish between them. Have you ever had someone ask you, do you like this? Hey, Jersey girl, do you like this? And it's difficult for you to tell. You're like, I don't like it. I don't dislike it. I don't know. That's on the scale of love and hate. There's in the middle, like and dislike. And at some point, you can't even tell the difference of whether you like something or not. Have you ever experienced that? You are experiencing the law of polarity and the principle of vibration at the same time. Courage and fear come under this same rule. The pairs of opposites exist everywhere. Where you find one thing, you find its opposite, the two poles. You find an aggravating person, you find a person who is aggravated. You find a very entertaining person, then you find someone who is entertained. You got to think about that for a second. And it is this fact that enables the student to transmute one mental state into another. If you understand that love is here and hate is here, and there's a continuum in between, you might not slide all the way up to love, but you know you can. So what you do is you start making the upward climb. So maybe you make it to neutrality. or slight dislike. You have polarized yourself. We're talking about mental transmutation. So you're not stuck feeling what you feel just because something is happening. You have creative ability here. Things belonging to different classes cannot be transmuted into each other, but things of the same class may be changed. That is, may have their polarity changed. Thus, love never becomes east or west. If you have different categories, you can't transmute the different categories into one another. You have to have the same scale. So if you have the scale of love and hate, east and west, you can't change love to west. It's meaningless. But you can change hate to dislike, or hate to like, or hate to love. You can do that. You may not want to, but you can. Hey, pretty lady. Courage may be transmuted into fear and the reverse. Hard things may be rendered soft. Listen. Dull things become sharp. Hot things become cold, and so on. Listen. I love my bath water super hot. Like scalding hot, like my skin be red. I think I'm boiling myself. Okay? And when I first step in, it's so like you like, oh my God, it hurts. You do all that, right? And then you start saying, oh, that feels good. My muscles needed this. You begin to transmute your experience right there from hot to not so hot. The temperature didn't change that quick. I don't like being cold. So during the summer, when I jump in the pool, it's like an extraordinary experience. It's awful. It's excruciating until I do it. And then I'm like, it's not that bad. It's not that bad. It's not. Hey, Big Mama. When I had my C-section, I was still awake, right? And if you've had a C-section, you understand what I'm saying. I swore I felt them cutting me. I swore I felt it. And I told them. And they started doing other things and asking me if I felt that, and I didn't. So they said, this is not pain, this is pressure. So you know what I started saying to myself while they were they're cutting me open to get my twins. And I said, this is not pain, this is pressure. This is not pain, this is pressure. The person I was married to held my hand and I said, tell me this is not pain, this is pressure. And then they began to do it. You know what? I didn't feel a thing. Your mental will create a situation that doesn't exist because you can access different planes of vibration. You can. Every time I'm teaching a fitness class, when people go, oh, it hurt, oh, they start losing control and their bodies start going into a stress response. And I tell them, no, stop doing that. Breathe. Say, I got this. Don't escalate it. Because when you escalate it, you think you don't have more strength left. And don't y'all be doing that. Oh my God. Oh, shit. Oh, stop doing that. Deep breathe. This is working out for my good. I got this. So, hey, Johnny, let's say I have 3 sets that I give a client. They cutting up on the first 2 sets. They tired because they was cutting up, not even because they were doing the exercise all the way. On the 3rd set, I instruct them to regulate their nervous system, and they last the whole time. So how did you last the whole time on the 3rd one at the end of the workout when the first one you couldn't even do it? Because mental transmutation, you needed me to shift your vibration. And if you're open and you go, okay, then you make it. But if you resist it and you go, no, that hurts, then you're going to fall out. I used to have a client that used to do that. She would just fall out and be like, oh, ouch. And when she first did it, I swore she was injured. I said, are you okay? And she was like, yes. What just happened? Oh, it was just burning. What are you? Okay, let's keep going. You could transmute your own energy. That's all I'm saying. And I'm about to wrap this up because I got a client coming up. Is this making sense? Right. Cut the fuck up. I used to have a client, she wouldn't make a sound, she would just collapse. Thank you. And I'd be like, wait, stop that. You can't collapse. All right. Take the case of a fearful man. By raising his mental vibration along the line of fear and courage, he can be filled with the highest degree of courage and fearlessness. And likewise, a slothful man may change himself into an active, energetic individual simply by polarizing along the lines of the desired quality. The student who is familiar with the processes by which various schools of mental science produce changes in the mental states of those following their teachings may not readily understand the principle underlying many of these changes. When, however, the principle of polarity is once grasped, and it is seen that the mental changes are occasioned by a change of polarity, sliding along a scale, the matter is more readily understood. Change is not in the nature of transmutation of one thing into another thing entirely different. It's merely the change of degree in the same things. This is a vastly important difference. For instance, borrowing an analogy from the physical plane, it is impossible to change heat into sharpness. Loudness into highness, but heat may be readily transmuted into cold simply by lowering the vibration. In the same way, hate and love are mutually transmutable, so are fear and courage, but fear cannot be transformed into love. There's some people who say the opposite of love is fear. The spiritual teachings here say the opposite of fear is courage. Now, fear may block the vibration of love, but the opposite of love here is saying it's not fear. And courage cannot be transmuted into hate. The mental states belong to innumerable classes, each class of which has its opposite poles, along with transmutation as possible. Okay, and so I'm going to stop right here. So I want you to leave with this idea. If you feel something that you don't want to feel, you can transmute it into the opposite end of the scale, or at least neutralize yourself. You can. Right, that's what it's saying, vibranium. Okay? Hey, Goddess Infusion. If you're feeling frustrated, for example, let's make this practical, because I want you to walk away with the ability to start transmuting energies right away. If you're feeling frustrated, recognize I'm in the frequency of frustration. I'm vibrating frustration. And I can bring myself out of it too, without denying what's going on. The thing can still be going on. Let's make it traffic. I'm sitting in the traffic and I want to get home because I'm tired. So I feel frustrated. And I'm blowing the horn and I'm getting upset and I'm flipping people the bird. Oh, I got, what they call that? Rage. What kind of rage is it? They call it rage. You can own that and be like, yeah, I got road rage. That's it, road rage. You could be like, I have road rage. You're going to stay on that frequency because you're not even trying to polarize yourself. You, even if you don't like it, you have an affinity for it because you keep going back to it. Okay, so that's your vibration. Your vibrational loop is, I get in traffic, I get frustrated, and I stay stuck. And the more things happen, the more frustrated I get. And if my children call me while I'm in the traffic, I intensify even more into frustration. And that frustration turns into anger. And I drain myself. This is my loop. That's my vibration. You could say that and you could stay there. But eventually you get tired of draining yourself. And you could say, okay, I might not be able to love being in traffic, and I might not be able to love being tired, but I certainly am not subordinate to this mood, this energy, this emotion. I'm not subordinate to that. It's subordinate to me. What me? The consciousness of you, the ba of you, the wisdom sheath of you. It's subordinate. So as soon as you submit to a mood or state or polarization, you have become disempowered. Now, every time you go into traffic, you got to enter the same loop. It's a reset. Don't you know people get in rush hour traffic every day and experience the same loop over and over again? They do the same complaining. They do the same set of reactions every single day. It's automated. It's an autopilot. It's robotic. Let's call it a vibrational state of being. Let's call it a mood. Whatever we call it, it has a vibration, right? And that vibration is on the same scale. Eventually you get tired of that. Maybe on the job, the people get on your nerves every day. Here they come. She gonna tell me this. She gonna tell me that. I go into my contraction. Thank you. I get upset. I close up. I need to run. I need to quit this job. I need to do this. I need to do that. You need to shift your vibration, because even if you change jobs and you bring that frequency, you're still on the same plane. So you're stuck with the same experiences. And you could say, I want to change the scenery so I can feel better. And you get a change of scenery. You change the job. You change the state. You change the city. You change the home. You change the relationship. You change the clothes. You change your hair. And you're still there. Behold, you're still in the same frequency. You might get in the new environment and it may start feeling good at first, but you don't vibrate there. You don't vibrate in a space where you can enjoy it. You vibrate on your other plane. So before long, you're going to bring that timeline into the new thing. It's just the way it is until you increase your vibration. So I'm not saying don't change. What I am saying is if you don't change, you can change the outside thing, but you're going to manifest the same thing with your natural vibration. Okay? So decide today to remember that every mood, every emotion, every thought, every mental state has a vibration and a frequency and poles. With that information, you can look at it and say, what is one step above this? I have something I want to show you really quick. Hold on one second. I'm going to pause the live for a second. Okay, so let me show you this and then I gotta go. There's something called the Map of Consciousness by, I think it's David Hawkins, okay? So I want to give you a visual of what I'm saying here. So you can go away and be empowered to shift frequencies, shift your own states of being. And it's more than shifting the way you feel, it's shifting the way you naturally vibrate so that you can ascend and transcend. It's not just about overcoming traffic. It's about having your native vibration set so that something like traffic is like a no-brainer for you, whatever. Okay? Because it's not harmful. Unless you got to go to the bathroom, that's different. But if you don't have to go to the bathroom, it's not harmful. You're just getting upset about it. You're funneling your energy in a direction that's not useful to you. I'm trying to help you become masterful. So look at this. Okay. So this is called the map of consciousness, and you probably can't see all of it, but you get the gist. Look up there at courage. You see, courage is about at the middle point of this scale. So go all the way down to the bottom. You see shame down there? When you're at shame, let's say you're vibrating on a level 20. Courage is at a level 200. If you wanted to come out of shame, you wouldn't try to jump into courage because the vibration doesn't work like that. You could jump and transmute that into grief. You could. Because maybe at some point in your life, you started carrying the vibration because you didn't measure up and someone was ashamed of you and you grieved losing their confidence or acceptance and you feel ashamed when you let people down. So when you start grieving, right, that moves you higher in vibration. Now, let's say you transmute that grief into fear and you say, yes, I realize that I lost their confidence and their acceptance, and I fear that I may let people down. Okay, that's doing better because you're admitting something, and I have the desire to do better. Okay, that's something. And I feel angry every time I don't meet that desire. And then I feel prideful when someone tells me that I let them down, and I defend and I get upset and I run. But then I learn courage. I can listen to what someone is saying. I can take it for what they're saying and how they mean it. And at the same time, I can decide how I want to shift that. Now we're looking at something. Now you can move yourself into neutrality. So now you don't feel any kind of way if they feel a particular thing. You don't go into shame. You already healed the grief. You already healed the fear. You understand what your desire is. You don't even move in anger because you got grace for yourself. Listen. So now you are in neutrality, but you're willing to do something different, and you accept that something different needs to be happening. Right? And so then you engage in logic around to see what you can shift. And that results in self-love because you have moved yourself through your realm of emotion. Let me know if that makes sense, please. I'm talking about transmutation. So you're likely not going to jump straight from shame to courage. So you could say, hey, Chanel, you could say, oh, I'm going to stop doing that. And you could want to, but remember, you still vibrate on the level of shame. So you got to say, right now I vibrate on the level of shame, but I have the desire. So let me see where that comes from so I can transmute that into some grief. And there are stages of grief that I can move through. And the last stage of grief is acceptance. And if I get myself into acceptance through the process, right, then you see, this is transmutation. We are not staying the same. We're not making excuses. Right? We realize things have happened in our lives that have been horrible, hurtful, downright just despicable. But at the same time, I am divine consciousness, and I'm going to polarize. I'm going to heal. I'm going to move through these layers and levels so I can exist at the transcended level that I want to. I'm going to do that for myself. I'm not going to wait for a partner to do it. I'm not going to wait for the pastor to do it. I'm not going to wait for someone to justify and validate me to do it. I'm not going to wait until the perfect book comes. No, I just heard this teaching. And so I'm going to start doing it every moment, every day, every time, without fail, until I reach where I'm trying to reach. And I'm not going to make excuses. Well, you know, such and such happened. Well, you know, my zodiac. Well, you know, my numerology. Well, you know, my design. You know, no. You are the master. Ashe, that's the Hermetic Principles. So I'm going to put this on YouTube. Coaching is available. If you need some assistance, you can go on my website and sign up at veronicamarie.com. You can go on YouTube and look at past videos. You can join my private community. Send me a message and I'll make sure you get the link. It's called Ascension Minded, the Path of Ascension. That's who it's for. It's not for people who just want to sit there and take up space. It's not for people who just want to consume information. It's for people who want to have these kind of conversations on a personal basis with groups of like-minded people. That's what I'm building. It's for people who want to come out of the collective. It's for people who are tired of saying me too with the rest of the people. You're ready for something more, something higher, something deeper, something wider. That's who my community is for. So I gotta go because my client is at 5:30. Peace. Much love to y'all, and I'll talk to you soon.